This is section 2.7, graphing piecewise functions. So when you see a piecewise function, it's different from graphing a regular function because there's usually more than one equation involved. So in this example, there's two equations. There's y, or f of x, equals x plus 2. And then there's a second equation under it that says y equals negative x plus 2. And so when you're graphing a piecewise function, you're actually going to graph both of these equations on the graph using the given parameters. So in this first one, the parameter they gave you, graph this first equation for x is greater than 1, and for the second one, graph the second one only when x is less than or equal to 1. So just for an example, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to graph the first equation just as I'd normally graph it. Forget about the ifs, forget that it's a piecewise function, just graph this red one. So x plus 2. We know here that b is equal to 2, and we know here that m is equal to 1, so that's very easy. You just go to 0, 2 to graph b, and then you know the slope is 1, so you just move 1 up to the right in each one, and you can even go down to the left, and then this gives you an idea of what the line is going to be, and I'll just connect them, and that's it, it's graphed. And now the second one, very similar. We know b is 2, but we also know m is negative 1 here. So to graph b at 2, right here, same place, but now we're going negative 1, so that's down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1, or left 1 and up 1 if we're going to go in the other direction. And then you just connect the lines, and then there you have it, negative sloping intersecting line. So these are the two graphs of the line. Now, after you've graphed both of these graphs, you can think about what the parameters are. So here, in this first example, they say only do x plus 2 when x is greater than 1. So first I want to see what part of the graph represents x greater than 1. And so x equals 1 is like right here, this second line, this first line on the graph. So x greater than 1 is actually this whole section over here, which, like right here, this whole gray section I've colored in. So everything that part forward, that's x is greater than 1. And so they're saying only graph x plus 2, the red line, when x is greater than 1. So what you want to do is you want to erase everything that was red that's less than x equals 1. So when I do that, I get a graph of the red line that looks like this. Now, because up here they say x is greater than 1, not greater than or equal to, this is going to be a hollow circle here. So that's what the piecewise graph of x plus 2 looks like. It's a hollow circle at the 1, and then it only shows everything where x is greater than 1. And so you've cut it off, that's the piece. Now the second graph, negative x plus 2, they say graph this only when x is less than or equal to 1. So here, x is less than or equal to 1 again. But this is going to be a solid circle because there's an equal to sign right here. And now in this area, they only want you to show things where x is less than or equal to 1. And so that's basically the whole area over here. So over here, everything is less than or equal to 1. So they want you to erase everything that's above the 1. So we're going to do that here. And that's it. Now you have these two piecewise functions. One that shows x plus 2 when x is greater than 1, and one that shows negative x plus 2 only when x is less than or equal to 1. Here's another example of graphing a piecewise function. Now this one looks more confusing because instead of 2 equations, they actually give you 4 different equations. And the equations they give you are y is equal to negative 1, and that's when x is between negative 2 and 1. The second one they give you is y is equal to negative 2, and that's when x is between 1 and 3. Third one they give you is y is equal to negative 3, and that's between x, 3, and 6. And then the fourth one they give you is y is equal to negative 4 when x is between 6 and 8. So first thing you have to realize instantly is that when you see y equals some number, you immediately know that this is talking about a horizontal line. So for example, if I was just going to graph the line y equals negative 1 alone, without thinking about piecewise functions, if I was just going to do that, I would come over here, plug in an x, so I'm going to do x equals 0. At x equals 0, y equals negative 1. At x equals 1, y equals negative 1. At x equals 2, y equals negative 1, because, you know, y always equals negative 1 in this equation. So no matter what x I'm at, y is always negative 1. So you immediately know that all of these functions that they've given you are actually graphs of horizontal lines. So you know whenever you see y equals something, always a horizontal line. So now that you know that, you can actually graph this by looking at the limits. So the first equation, y equals negative 1, they tell you right here that y equals negative 1 when negative 2 is less than or equal to x. So x has to be bigger than negative 2 right here. So where's the negative 2 on the graph? It's right here. So when x is to the right of that, and while x is less than 1. So they've given you two conditions in one. They've told you x has to be greater or than or equal to negative 2, and x has to be less than 1. So first let's go to negative 2 and y equals negative 1. So it says x has to be greater than or equal to negative 2. So I'm going to plot this and I'm going to color it in because there's an equal to. And then the second if says and x has to be less than 1. So I'm going to go to the 1, x equals 1 right here, and then put a circle there, but it's going to be a hollow circle because there's no equal to. It's only a less than sign. And then just draw the horizontal line between the limits. So that's what it looks like. That's what the graph of y is equal to negative 1, but only between negative 2 and 1. So you can see negative 2 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than 1. So they've given you two conditions to graph at once. And now for the second one, the second graph right here, y equals negative 2, they've given you other conditions, and the conditions for this one are 1 is less than or equal to x is less than 3. This is another way of writing y equals negative 2 when x is greater than or equal to 1. So the first part says greater than or equal to 1. X is greater than or equal to 1. So that's right here, y equals negative 2. I'm going to color it in because it's there's a equal sign there. And then the second condition says x is less than 3 and x is less than 3. So I'm going to find x equals 3, 1, 2, 3, and put a circle there, not coloring it in because there's no equal sign. And then just draw the line between them for the line y equals negative 2. Now the third one is the exact same thing. So it's still a horizontal line at y equals negative 3. So down here, y equals negative 3, it's going to be somewhere there. But then they give you the conditions, which are 3 is less than or equal to x is less than 6. And so you can read this as, so x has to be greater than or equal to 3. So greater than or equal to 3, which is right here, x equals 3. I'm going to color it in because there's an equal sign. And then x has to be less than 6, but there's no equal sign. So I'm just going to be a hollow circle, and I'm going to put it right here. So that's done. And then the last one, y is equal to negative 4. We'll do it in green. And that's between 6 and 8. So x has to be greater than or equal to 6. So that's right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Color it in. And x has to be less than 8. So 7, 8. I'm going to pretend the graph is still going, and I'll draw the line right there, and that's it. You're done. You've graphed the 4 piecewise functions. This might look confusing because it's, just numbers here, and it's horizontal lines, but it's the same way you graph any piecewise function. You just graph the line regularly, and you erase the parts that are not in the if condition. So in this first one, y equals negative 1, they only want you to graph it between negative 2 and 1, right? And so they've put that there. And so once you graph them, just follow the same steps, it'll come out.